we're getting into the cross-examination, which is going to be the most juiciest part of this debate. So, we got Jacob first, it looks like. So, 15 minutes and 10 seconds on your first word.
Okay, 15 minutes is not long enough. We're going to expose some things here. So I want to understand what Luke is saying. So I'm going to ask him to clarify his positions. So and I didn't give all my evidence, but I think I gave sufficient amount, as much as I could cram in. Having observed the evidence I presented, do you, Luke, concede that the early fathers, such as St. John Chrysostom, preserved a tradition of invoking saints in prayer? Yes or no?
I am not going to tell you whether it's an early tradition because you're starting in the 400s.
No, I'm asking you, do you
Yes,
okay, do you concede
they do it.
that
Absolutely.
they did? Okay. Absolutely.
Everybody in the 400s is praying to saints.
Thank you. Fantastic. All right. So, is the invocation of saints, calling upon their intercession before God as part of the ancient cult of the saints, idolatrous? Is this idolatrous? All the fathers are doing it, you said.
Idol worship requires an idol. So no, saints are not idols.
Okay, but are they worshiping the saints?
God forbade two things: bowing down to and offering incense. So no, it's not worship.
So you're saying this is actually a Catholic, confirmed good practice of the church?
I haven't said that. That's a dumb question.
Well, that's the question I'm asking you then.
Whether I think it's
is
good
it
practice?
Acceptable that what St. John Chrysostom and the rest are doing, is that acceptable?
I'll debate that subject with you. But
it's
no,
part of the cult.
They're contradicting the early church when they do it. They're contradicting the universal teaching of the early church when they do it.
Well, at least you admit that you think that. So are you condemning St. John Chrysostom and the rest of the fathers as innovators?
Look at the name of the YouTube channel, Jake. Anti-Nicene Christianity. We believe that the church became very corrupt after Nicaea.
Wow. So you're going to insult St. John Chrysostom, the martyr, who is basically slaughtered, being marched to his death?
I'm going to insult John Chrysostom, who insulted the early church.
Wow. Okay.
Did you know John Chrysostom? Oh, sorry.
You'll answer for that. Do you concede that the early Christians venerated relics of the saints and martyrs?
Define venerate.
Bowed to and kissed.
They did kiss them, yes.
Okay. Do you accept that they placed these relics in these little reliquaries, pouches, and so on with gold and silk, and this great honor and veneration that was shown to the relics?
Some of them did, and they're condemned for it by others.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, they're condemned by John Chrysostom and Augustine. What Jerome does is condemned by John Chrysostom and Augustine.
So you would so not only Chrysostom, you'd condemn Jerome?
Well, they're condemning each other, so I'm not the one.
No, I'm asking you. We're talking about the consensus of the Catholic Church entirely here. Are you saying that Jerome is an innovator, that is a heretic, he's an idolater?
Yeah, you can tell because of the massive controversy he caused by what he was doing. It wasn't just vigilantes; it was a bunch of bishops.
All right, that's two fathers you've condemned to hell, or at least you've condemned them as innovators and heretics.
I haven't done that. I'm condemning their practice. May God have mercy on them.
So about the anti-Nicene fathers. So if this is a new innovative practice that was started later on, which is not how history works, by the way. Things can be attested to in the 300s and 400s that go back to the first century. But let's say if your butchering of history is correct somehow, you're demanding for written proof. Remember what Basil said, that these fools demand written proof. St. John Chrysostom says, if it's a tradition, look no further. St. John Chrysostom says people are stumbled, they're led to hell in their faith because they demand this written proof, this written evidence, which is exactly what you're doing, demanding your first century written proof. Anyway, even if you were correct somehow, why do you have St. Polycarp's relics being collected with great veneration by the people in the martyrdom of Polycarp?
Because it's not lawful. We can show respect to the bodies of the saints. You can believe that and reject image veneration at the same time.
Okay. Do you concede that and this is what Nicaea II says, by the way, you can read the Acts translated by Father Richard Price. Do you concede that Nicaea II and that the church place the invocation of saints, the veneration of their relics, the veneration of their images, that's all together part of the cult of saints and images that's been the church? That's what Nicaea II claims. Do you concede that?
Yeah, they put it all together.
Okay, so you see why then, to answer that question that popped up, you see why then I'm making this case, because that's exactly what Second Nicaea, the fathers there, do. So, okay, we're not looking for.
They didn't quote Augustine or John Chrysostom though, because they knew they would reject.
We don't need written proof of a doctrine. I showed the fathers saying that. That is not how the church operated. The church condensed its traditions in ecumenical councils when they were challenged by heretics. Nobody questioned these practices outside of Vigilantius and a few others until the Iconoclast movement.
No, John Chrysostom did.
Until the Iconoclast. John Chrysostom was wrong on a few things. Okay, we can admit that.
Augustine
was Augustine. So was Augustine.
Did.
Everyone was wrong on some things. Jerome condemns marriage too much. We all make mistakes, but I'm saying that the broader Catholic Church, the whole church as a whole, the Orthodox Catholic Church, did not condemn these things, and it, in fact, practiced them dogmatically. That's what I'm asserting to you. That's what was the unwritten oral tradition that was confirmed at Second Nicaea, exactly as Vincent says. Do we need to read the quote again? He says that these unwritten oral traditions, which did not exist in writing, in chapter 23 of the Commentary, he says they were confirmed at the ecumenical councils. These were confirmed at the councils. He's talking about the Council of Ephesus, the veneration of the Holy Theotokos. But it also applies to the Seventh Ecumenical Council, to Nicaea too, which is confirming the unwritten tradition that the church has always held of venerating the saints, their images, invoking them in prayer.
Let's also try to keep it also to questions mostly for the one who's
okay. I'm just illustrating why I'm. Yeah, that's okay. I'm illustrating what I'm doing here. But okay. So, do you concede that Saint Jerome articulates a distinction between the honor and veneration given to the saints and their relics, and the worship that is given to God alone, whose martyrs they are, and against Vigilantius? That's the statement he makes.
No, he says we don't adore them. That's even talking about bowing.
He says we honor the relics that we may adore him whose martyrs they are.
Yes, I even have the Latin words up on the website, but he doesn't make any distinction between latreia and proskynesis.
No, the point is that he's talking about an honor, a relative honor that's given to the relics, that's given to the saints, and the adoration, the absolute worship that is due to God alone. That is the principle behind
That's
Nicene
not what
Theism.
adoration means.
We're talking about that there's one kind of veneration. You're wasting my time here. Just say yes or no. Do you concede that St. Jerome teaches that there is one kind of honor that is given to the relics and the saints and the images, and another, well, he says relics and icons, relics of the saints. Do you concede that there's one kind of honor given to the saints, and there's another kind given to God, for God alone? Do you concede that he says that?
Yes, he does say that, but not the words.
I think it's very plain. He doesn't have to. It's the principle he's using. And of course, the language is different. Second Nicaea is a Greek council, so it wouldn't be Latin, of course. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, but the Greek and Latin fathers are in harmony on this, as they are broadly on most issues. Okay. So we didn't get to incense really much, so I'm going to skip over my questions about incense.
Still only talking about relics, though, not images.
How do you explain then, given the things that you've conceded, how do you explain your sect's discontinuity with the church fathers in these important matters?
We actually do. We agree with the whole early church on this issue. You can't get one anti-Nicene church father teaching.
I've given you St. John Chrysostom, St. Jerome, and others that you reject and disagree with. You have no continuity with them.
But the answer is you can have respect for the relics of the saints, which is their bodies. It's so stupid they use that word relic. Yes, you can kiss the body of somebody, and that's not the same as worshiping their images.
Luke, you're missing the point here. You're not even answering the question. Do you accept, or do you admit, or actually, how do you answer for your group's discontinuity with these practices? Because you don't invoke the saints, you don't venerate their relics, you don't consecrate. We didn't get into it. You don't consecrate your temples with the relics, the churches.
Yes, we believe that the church changed after Nicaea. Yeah, so we do have continuity. So you're going to condemn.
Oh, so Saint number 3. Would you condemn Saint Ambrose for consecrating the churches with relics?
Saint Ambrose believes you can consecrate relics. Yeah, we do disagree with that. But he believes you can have relics in a church and that you should never bow down to wooden images. He believes both of those two things at the same time.
We agree. We don't bow down to wooden images. Anyway, now I'm answering your questions. We'll get to that in your cross-examination.
Yeah, I was going to say, let's keep it a...
Yeah, we'll get that to his, yeah. Okay. So, do you seriously question the biblical learning, the knowledge of tradition of the men such as St. John Chrysostom and St. Jerome? And you already said, but were these saints idolaters? Were they committing acts of worship to the saints and to the relics that are improper, illicit?
We don't believe that relics are idols, no.
Is it okay to venerate, worship, proskuneo, or give proskynesis to the relics?
You can't see, this is how you mix up words. Kissing is not
real quick, Luke, you're kind of breaking up.
Is it better?
Testing. All right. Hello? Yeah, we can hear you now. But did you hear his question from Jake?
Yes, Jake has not cut out. You're using an ambiguous word, venerate, which can encompass all kinds of things: offering incense, bowing down, being a slave. So no, we're saying kissing.
Just answer the question.
Kissing is not the same thing as bowing down to and being a slave to somebody.
So that's not what I asked you. I asked you, do you condemn these fathers and do you question their biblical and traditional knowledge, their knowledge of tradition?
Absolutely. They don't have knowledge of the early church's tradition. They've rejected it on a lot of different
So you know more than St. John Chrysostom, St. Jerome, St. Ambrose?
The early church knows more than them, yeah, on a lot of issues.
Do you know more about the early church than they did?
Absolutely,
Do
yes.
you do? Okay. If you
Yeah.
can't see the pre-lust and hubris in that, I can't help you, man. God, no one
Well,
have
you got
mercy on
two
you.
options. If they're condemning the early church, either they're rejecting it or they're ignorant.
Stop asking me questions. It's not your time yet.
That wasn't a
All right. So, okay, Luke, one more question for you, and I'll yield the rest of my time. What would convince you personally that icon veneration is an acceptable and apostolic practice? That Second Nicaea is correct in its adjudication of this.
all the evidence I already have to the contrary is enough to know the truth on the issue.
No, I asked you what would convince you that it's true.
Nothing could override the consensus.
What do you expect? Well, you're misinterpreting that evidence, and I'll have to make a video going over all of my proof of that. But check out Vincentian Disciple after this. But no, I'm asking you, what would convince you personally? Okay, so we can agree that you'd have to have a refutation of what you believe is the patristic consensus against it. I agree. That's why I attempted to give that in a little bit of time I had. I'm asking you, what would convince you, as far as positive evidence goes, that this was the Catholic practice of the Church since the beginning?
One of two things. Either written evidence, which we have against it, or if you have the church being silent on the issue for the first 300 years, and then starting in the 300s, they start talking about it, you could make a stronger case for it then. But they weren't.
That's exactly what we have. I will demonstrate that. I will demonstrate that more. Okay. I guess that's the last thing I wanted to ask. I yield the rest of my. Wait, let me check. I think I might have had one question.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if you're gonna yield the time, I don't think.
How much time do I have?
You have 4 minutes. But
okay. Oh, okay. So, are you aware of Professor Robin Jensen and the fact that she says the early fathers are being abused by iconoclasts to say that they rejected sweepingly all pictorial representations?
Yes, definitely. That's a stupid thing. I've never heard anybody say that.
Do you know more than Professor Robin Jensen, who, by the way, let me add, she's published multiple books. She's the professor at the University of Notre Dame. She's published multiple books on early Christian art. Do you reject her position?
Well, I haven't read her, but yeah, I agree. I agree with the one thing that she said.
Maybe you should.
I agree with that one thing she said, that the early church fathers don't say all images are evil. They just think they're immature and dangerous.
No, she's saying that they're not condemning all pictorial representations of art. You've been quoting the fathers say they reject all images.
They don't say all art is evil, but they say we don't make pictures of God.
Okay, so we didn't get to go over that properly, but let me see if I had anything else.
No, but I am agreeing with you. They make pictures. They make signet rings. Yeah, they have pictures on a cup. Yeah, I agree with you, but not pictures of God, and they certainly don't bow down to them and offer them incense.
All right, one more. Do you concede that St. Jerome, in the quote I gave in my opening statement, the second quote from St. Jerome, I think, do you concede that he says that the Jews of old venerated the temple and the Ark of the Covenant and so on?
I would like to know what word he's using, but yeah, I mean, I know about
I can pull it back up.
Yes, I know all about that, but Jerome is definitely off his rocker at that point. He's contradicting the rest of the church, and he is
the famed Bible scholar and ascetic saint in the desert of Israel. He's wrong about the church tradition in the Bible. He doesn't know anything. By the way, he translated the Bible into Latin in the Vulgate. He translated the whole Bible. He knew it like the back of his hand. And you're saying he's ignorant. I know more than him. Me in the 21st century.
But you know, Jerome had huge controversies even with that translation.
Okay, no, this is my cross-examination. And I'm done. We're not debating the Vulgate. I'm just saying he knew the Bible.
That's all I'm
establishing. He translated the Bible into Latin. He knew the Bible. He knew the tradition of the church.
He can make errors.
The post-Nicene fathers knew the tradition. This is the last thing I want to illustrate here. The post-Nicene fathers knew the ante-Nicene tradition better than we do today. They were the heirs of the ante-Nicene fathers, who I do not condemn, by the way, with the exception of Tertullian and Origen, and only half begrudgingly Tertullian because he became heretical later on. But anyway, even Origen, I don't fully condemn his writings. A lot of them are great. So my point is that they are the heirs of Origen. St. Cyril of Alexandria is an heir of Origen. St. Jerome is an heir of Tertullian. These people are the heirs of the ante-Nicene fathers, but Luke says that he knows more than those post-Nicene fathers about the ante-Nicene tradition and about the scripture.
Did you have any other questions?
That's my last question. I'll yield the rest of my time. You can go.
Okay, sounds good.